started with the sound of the door creaking. A subtle groan, almost too quiet to notice, but enough to make me freeze mid-step. I'd been living alone for years, and I was used to the strange sounds of an old house. The groans of the floorboards, the whispers of the wind. But tonight felt different. The air was thick, almost suffocating, and my senses felt heightened, as though something was just out of reach, watching me. I glanced at the clock on the wall, 11:43 p.m. It was too late to be hearing noises like that. I stood up and moved toward the front door. Locked. I double-checked the windows. Closed. Everything seemed fine. Yet that creeping feeling at the back of my neck wouldn't leave. I locked the door again, double-checked the windows, and turned off the lights. My eyes fell on the couch where I had just been sitting. The quiet of the house felt oppressive now. My thoughts wandered back to the creak I'd heard. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe it was nothing. I tried to convince myself of that as I sank back into the couch. But something didn't feel right. I felt exposed, like I wasn't alone. Then it came again. The floorboards creaked from the hallway. I froze. I wasn't moving. So who was? "Hello?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady, but my words felt fragile, cracking as I said them. Silence. Only the faint hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. I stood up slowly, heart pounding, grabbing the nearest thing I could find, a lamp. I took a cautious step toward the hallway. The shadows seemed to move around me. Every step I took felt heavier than the last, the air growing colder. When I reached the edge of the hallway, I turned the corner, ready to face whatever might be there. Empty. I breathed a small sigh of relief. My mind was playing tricks on me. The house was old. It groaned. I had been up too long. I turned back toward the living room, but something stopped me. There was a figure standing at the edge of the room. Tall. Still. Watching. My blood ran cold. I blinked, hoping it was just a trick of the light. But no. There it was. A dark silhouette in the corner of the room. So still it seemed like part of the shadows. My heart hammered in my chest. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice barely a whisper, cracking with fear. But there was no answer. Not a sound. Just the oppressive silence and that feeling that someone was there. I swallowed hard, the lamp trembling in my hand. I took a step forward, and the figure did nothing. Didn't move. Didn't speak. But as I stepped closer, the figure melted into the shadows, as if it was never there at all. I blinked, feeling my pulse racing. But when I looked again, the room was completely empty. There was no one standing in the corner. No sign that anyone had ever been there. I turned on every light in the house, the brightness harsh and sudden. The shadows retreated, but the feeling of dread remained, thick in the air. It wasn't just the lights, though. It was the quiet, the unnatural stillness that had settled over everything. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The house was too silent. The kind of silence that made you feel like you were intruding on something you shouldn't have. I glanced nervously at the door, then back down the hallway. Everything felt off. And then I heard it again. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the stairs. The sound made my blood run cold. The stairs led to my bedroom. No one was supposed to be there. I was alone. I hadn't heard the front door open, and I had locked everything. My mind raced with the possibility of someone breaking in, but there were no signs. No broken windows, no signs of forced entry. My breath quickened, panic rising as I realized the footsteps weren't stopping. They were getting closer, step by step, up the stairs. I could feel my legs shaking beneath me as I crept down the hallway, straining to hear. The stairs creaked with every step. I tried to make myself small, to hide in the shadows of the hallway, but the steps kept coming, slow and steady, as though whoever was on the other side was savoring every moment. My eyes darted from the stairs to the basement door. I froze. I had checked every window. I had checked every door, but I hadn't checked the basement. I had left the basement door slightly ajar earlier in the day, thinking nothing of it. Now, the door was wide open. Cold air wafted up from the darkness below. My stomach turned. I turned back to the stairs, the footsteps now just above me. Heavy. Too heavy to be anyone who had just walked in. The door to the basement creaked open wider. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. The whisper came from the dark space at the bottom of the stairs. A sound so faint I could barely make it out at first. You shouldn't have ignored me. The voice was slow, deliberate, hollow, empty. I bolted for the front door, but when I reached it, I saw that it had been unlocked. It had been locked earlier. I don't scare easily. I've lived alone for years and never once felt uneasy about it. Until last night. It started like any other night. I got home from work, cooked dinner, and spent the evening scrolling on my phone. By the time I checked the clock, it was almost midnight. Time to call it a night. As I turned off the lights and headed to my bedroom, I noticed something odd. The porch light outside my door was flickering. I didn't think much of it. It's an old bulb, probably on its way out. But as I reached for the light switch in the hallway, I froze. There was a shadow, a figure standing just outside my front door, barely visible through the frosted glass window. At first, I thought it might be my neighbor. Maybe they needed something, but they weren't knocking. They weren't moving. They were just standing there. "Hello?" I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. No response. I stepped closer to the door, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. "Can I help you?" Still nothing. Just silence. I reached for my phone to call someone, anyone. But as soon as I picked it up, the porch light went out completely. For a moment, I stood there in total darkness, my hand hovering over the door handle. Then came the knock. Not a loud knock, just 3 soft, deliberate taps. I couldn't breathe. "Who's there?" I managed to whisper. No answer. But then, I heard something that made my stomach drop. A faint, raspy voice, right outside the door. "It's cold out here." I stumbled back, my hands shaking. The voice didn't sound normal. It was low, distorted, like a recording played too slowly. Suddenly, the knocking stopped, replaced by a scratching sound, like nails dragging across the door. I ran to the bedroom, locked the door, and grabbed the baseball bat I kept under my bed. I don't know how long I stayed there, sitting on the floor, staring at the door. The scratching eventually stopped, but I couldn't bring myself to check if they were still there. When morning finally came, I found the courage to open the door. The porch was empty, but there was something on the ground. A single, old-fashioned key, rusted and cold to the touch. I don't know who or what was outside my door last night, but I changed the locks this morning, and I haven't slept since. I'll never forget the night it started. The night I heard the whispering. It was a week after I moved into this old house. It's nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom fixer-upper in the middle of nowhere. Quiet, peaceful. At least, that's what I thought. The spare bedroom had always made me uneasy, though. The air felt heavier in there, colder. Like the room didn't belong to the rest of the house. I'd kept the door shut since the day I moved in. But that night, that was the first time I heard it. I was sitting in the living room, scrolling on my phone, when I noticed it. A faint whisper, soft and low, like someone murmuring just out of earshot. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. It was coming from the spare bedroom. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just the wind, or maybe the old pipes in the walls. But the whispers grew louder, clearer, as if whoever or whatever was speaking wanted me to hear. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Angry, desperate, hungry. I stood up, my legs shaking as I crept down the hallway. The door to the spare bedroom was ajar, just slightly, like it was waiting for me. "Hello?" My voice cracked as I spoke. The whispering stopped. Dead silence. I reached for the door handle, my hand trembling. I pushed it open. The room was empty, but as I stood there, frozen, I realized something was wrong. The shadows in the corners of the room were moving, crawling along the walls like they were alive. Then I heard it, right behind me. A breath, cold,